See, I don't even have to say anything to make you laugh. You know, this is what our viewers have come to expect on Welcome to Marijuana Mind this week with yours truly, Dave Davis, and my prodigious, I don't even know if that's the right word for you anymore, my prodigious co-host.
What means prodigious?
In this case, it would basically be impressive, synonym for impressive.
Oh yeah, definitely. I qualify. Yes. Yeah. Prodigious as fuck. I'm just kidding. And classy lady.
Yeah, so classy. Anyone that says classy is not classy. That's
no,
I have to say that. Sorry for everyone. Sorry, not sorry.
I am like anybody who says something about themselves like I am super classy, or I am like the nicest person, or I'm not trying to be a bitch.
You're a classy dame.
All of those statements mean that you're the opposite of what you just said. So right. But you can call me a classy dame. I just can't call myself a classy dame, nor would I, because it's not like 1930s carnival barker. But I love the throwback on this wonderful Thursday. Throwback Thursday.
And it's just us today. You know, if
why
you're
is it
listening,
just us?
If you're listening and you're like, I just can't get enough of that Cynthia and Dr. J. What did you say? Dr. JNasty?
JNasty and CB1. So Dr. J is one character. You've got JNasty is like your alter ego and also pseudonym for your OnlyFans page. And then
maybe it's the other way around, and Dr. Davis is my alter ego, and I really am JNasty.
And you go by Dr. Davis on OnlyFans?
When, you know, when I dress up like this is my Clark Kent look, and I like in the office, and then I get out.
How many subscribers do you have? How many subscriber do you have? Well, yes, we don't have a guest today because we have plenty to talk about in Florida MMJ world and surrounding.
And our guests have been asking if, you know, just you and I can give them a little more FaceTime and just us, right? So
yeah, they're like, listen, just do a show with just the two of you. Stop hosting guests. No, we love having guests because we love the different perspectives. But when it comes time to talk about like brass tacks, having a third, it's just not our cup of tea.
No.
Put the Zima on ice. We don't need a third.
Just need the couple. But I will say that if you're watching this on video, there's something new going on behind you here.
So this was a little passion project of mine. This is the new backdrop for the Marijuana Mind podcast. You'll be seeing the TikTok that I made about it later today. So what I did was, I know everyone's wondering, how did you do that? How much did you pay for that? Well, I went to Lowe's. They have these privacy panels with little like designs. So these are supposed to go outside, I assume. And then they're like $30. And then I bought some LED lights, and I can control everything from my phone or my voice. So, you know, it's great. And then
I control from your voice.
I put standoffs, so it comes off the wall and it creates the shadow. And then it's just pulsing just various wonderful colors. And I feel like there's a theme.
You are prodigious AF.
I know, but like, I love lights. I love lights. I have a thing for lights.
Now, you went to Lowe's. Let me ask you this. Do you ever go to Hobby Lobby?
I may Hobby Lobby from time to time, maybe yesterday, about this time yesterday. Yeah. Why? You don't know.
I feel like that's the kind of place like Chick-fil-A that, you know, I try hard not to support them too much.
Because of the fact that they love Jesus?
No, I don't mind.
And they're closed on Sundays?
No, that's fine. Although that is a common thread between the two. I think it's more their anti-gay stance where
I'm with you.
Where I'm like, you know, live and let live. Everybody should be able to, you know, it's like some people don't like cannabis. That's fine. They don't have to like cannabis themselves, but should they be stopping people that like it or depend upon it as a medication from using it because they don't like it?
I don't believe anybody has the right to tell or judge anyone for the way that they like things in general. Like, are you going to judge me for liking a hamburger, like well done versus medium?
That I might judge you. Yes.
Why? Because you
Let's
feel like
say, give another example.
I'm ruining the burger. Is that what
You're
you think?
ruining it. Yes.
Okay, so these a-holes out
Another
there that
example.
think that the LGBTQ community is ruining marriage or ruining, the sanctity of whatever. They're judging them based off something that they like or are into. And that's just not something I'm into.
I think the irony is that isn't sort of one of the main tenets of Jesus in the Bible is not to judge other people.
I'm fairly certain that Jesus was not super judgy, but like, I don't understand why it didn't translate down to like nowadays. But if they didn't make such damn good chicken biscuits, I would quit them so fast.
I know.
I would totally quit them.
Why do they have to be so good?
Well, that's why I will only support them when I'm out and about before 10:30 a.m. and near a Chick-fil-A. So yes, I'm with you. And this was Lowe's, not Hobby Lobby. I went to a hardware store and I purchased this and I strung the lights up and mounted it with the hardware that I happen to have extra of. And now it's the new Marijuana Mind backdrop.
I mean, besides the fact that it might give me a seizure.
Yeah, definitely hoping that everyone understands that this podcast could possibly cause seizures. And you have nothing in your background, Justin.
You know what? I have a piece of art that I want to put up there.
What is it?
Pretty cool piece of art. It's from San Francisco, an artist in San Francisco, but it's interesting because it's all done in wax. It's hard, but it's done in wax, and then everything is inscribed in it in the wax. So you couldn't really put it, like in hot sun, but it doesn't look like wax. It looks like it's paint.
It's not going to work in your office because you keep it stifling in there.
But it's incredible that somebody, when you see it, that somebody took the time and trouble and also could be so perfectly symmetrical in creating this by hand.
There you go. My backdrop. Verbatim. That is a wonderful way to describe it. How could I be so good and intricate at just a passion project in a short weekend? I don't know how I do it. I just do it. Just like this little ticket over here, I was going to be saving for later, but I was making shirts. So it's just so funny because it's pointing right towards you. It says, I rented this hooker.
So are you gonna give that to your boyfriend?
No. First of all, that's not even a thing. Second of all, I want to wear this everywhere.
But you really have to be with somebody for it to be funny.
That's what I'm saying. I'll stand next to everybody.
Everybody,
and it's still funny.
Did you make that shirt or did you buy it?
I made that.
And did you think of that little thing?
I thought about the fact that I could stand next to anybody in a grocery store and make myself laugh.
I mean, if you really invented that, it's genius and you should market it and sell it.
I don't think I invented that. I just made this shirt. I think the quote has been around, like, I'm with stupid, and then they point the arrow, or the Mickey Mouse ones that they did. So this is just a little bit more brash and not child friendly.
Yeah, but it's funny.
So funny. So funny. Because as long as I get to have some enjoyment out of it, then that's all that matters. Right.
I like the fact that you're going to wear it. So it's like you're turning the tables.
Yeah, exactly. There's no gender roles in this house.
No.
No, it is going to be hilarious. So when the hilarity ensues, I will make sure that I let you guys know about it, or how much trouble I get in, or how many Hobby Lobbies or Publicize I get kicked out of in the Brevard County area. But let's get started.
I will say, I just want to comment that, the word, like, because normally people have called like a male hooker a gigolo, right? But if you're like I'm a gigolo, that actually almost has a little cachet to it, versus if you were like, oh, I'm a prostitute.
I don't think anybody ever says I'm a hooker. I'm a hooker.
I'm a prostitute.
They say
because it has a very negative. Because it has a very negative connotation, whereas a guy might be like, yeah, I'm a gigolo. But if a woman is like, I'm a prostitute, you see what I mean? You see where I'm going?
No, they don't even say that. Like, you have to say like code words. Like, I'm a compensated company. Yes.
But I'm not. But I'm not.
I just had to come up with something that made sense.
I'm not talking about someone that is actually a sex worker. I'm pointing out that the terms themselves are quite biased.
I think that all sex workers have started to kind of kind of shift the language towards something a little bit more, palatable. So like instead of I'm a legit hooker and she's a hooker, she can say I'm an escort. They're only hookers when they're dead.
Right.
That's my next
Yeah.
shirt. There you go. See, it's just gold coming out of this mouth right now, like just gold. I got to write this stuff down or else I'll forget. Just like when I wrote down when I was high, a great idea about teriyaki terpenes, but we'll get into that later. I digress. So we're going to talk about some MMJ stuff going on in Florida because it has been a busy couple of weeks. Things have been happening that I have predicted would never happen. And I'll let you start because I always start.
Well, you want to start with the big things or the little things?
Everything's a big thing. There's no little things. Let's
No,
start
that's
with
not true. That's not true.
Daddy Desantis on April 24th, or sorry, Daddy DeSantis last Friday said April 24th. Mark your calendars, everyone. April 24th, 2023. They will be accepting applications for the 22 licenses that were supposed to be, allowed for the public to apply for 5 years now, and they're finally it's happening.
But it's a big deal because it's going to double the amount of licensees out there.
Yes.
And also, you didn't think that was going to happen, right? Because
I never thought it was going to happen.
Because he's been holding this up for a long time.
Yes. He's made active measures and put things in place to prevent this from happening. He also has said, quote, I do not want Florida to smell like cannabis smoke.
Right. So which is funny because he's the one that made flower possible.
But did he have outside, like,
of course he didn't.
Contribution?
No. I'm not saying he did it because he was a pro flower and he wanted it.
No,
but nevertheless, it was his hand that made it happen, even though I'm sure it was some deal that he had to make to get elected.
If he said he doesn't want Florida to smell like weed, and he doesn't want the Florida marijuana smoke to be clouding up the judgment of the voters, blah, 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 whatever, like little soapbox he was standing on that day when he said that comment about smoke and the smell, it seems like he can just shift to a different soapbox if something happens or somebody helps fund his better soapbox.
He never said I love flower. It's the people need it.
No, he did say he doesn't like it though.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He never said he loves it. He just says he doesn't like it.
He doesn't like it. But I'm saying he didn't force us to be able to use flower when he first came to office because he's a pro, because he's a fan. That was one of the deals that he made, I'm sure. And so he made good on it. But it doesn't mean he actually likes it. So he's been holding up this process. And what do you think changed that? Because I can tell you it's not True Leave, right? They don't want any more. They were probably perfectly happy.
That's a great segue because so first, for any listeners out there that want to apply, there's going to be different rounds of applications being accepted so that I think they're doing that to make it easier for the OMMU to judge everybody's application. But I also think so that in the event there's litigation, that it will happen in incremental wave as opposed to all at once if it was all 22 licenses. If you have $146,000 laying around and some people that know how to grow pot well-ish, and you have money, and non-refundable 146,000 that is, then you can apply on the 24th of April. This is what we've been waiting for. Like, we don't know the magic sauce. I mean, we kind of have an idea that goes into an application to make it a winner, but we know that if you're not a winner, you can always litigate into a winner situation. So anyone who applies is probably going to eventually get one, because in like June of this year, we're expected to hit 1 million patients, which means 8 more licenses in June.
So do you think
and they'll award those?
Do you think that the black farmer license applicants that didn't get chosen, will they be given, if they then enter, one, will the amount that they paid be accepted for this round, and will they be given a weighted chance because of that?
I would say hold on that one, because all of the stories that I've been reading about this announcement last
Mhm.
week that Daddy DeSantis, Papa DeSantis's group released on Friday, every article never mentioned anything about the Black farmers. But I feel like there should be language in whatever they did release that I need to do some more digging before I can answer that question.
Mhm.
Because they have to. Like they must, not
They
may, they
should.
must
They
do it.
should.
They
But
they
they don't always
shan't, they shan't not do it. I'm just saying,
but
like, this is
they don't always do everything, that they're supposed to.
well, and this is one of the very few markets that does a non-refundable amount. Like if you don't get a license, you still paid for it.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to put down, which really limits obviously the applicants. You're not going to have any, just entrepreneurs that want to get into it. That you
You'd be
have to have,
surprised.
you have to have backing, and you
Well, okay,
also
you can't be some non like you can't be somebody who does not have the capital to run a vertically integrated business in the state of Florida in the program that we're in and be a competitor. So we have 22 license holders that have been established in this market. They've got their loyalties, they've got their patient base, they've got their doctor base, and they have market share and definitely presence. If
Mhm.
anybody wants to compete with the 22 current license holders, they are going to have money, because what you're going to have to do is something different than the current license holders. My
Well,
suggestions would be,
I,
okay,
I hear what you're saying, but you're assuming that they want to actually try to make something of themselves, as opposed to turning around and selling their license for, somewhere between 20 to $60 million.
I don't think they're allowed to do that this time.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure, but I said, I don't think that they're allowed to, but let me double check on that too.
I think that
Here's
they
the
are.
reason is because look at the shit show that happened before.
Mhm.
But there were other requirements. There were like nursery requirements and all of that really limited the amount of applicants that could apply in the first round. This hasn't happened since 2017. And then they finally
Mhm.
gave the people the licenses, and it was a slow roll. And I think the last one was actually the sale of Harvest Health to True Leave, and then that to Planet 13. But I mean, this is years of them establishing dominance in the market. Anybody who's currently operating, how do you expect anybody to make up the cost of doing business if they don't get their piece of the pie? Because application cost is nothing, but getting a team together to write the application, attorneys, leases on property for dispensary locations. We're talking staffing, insurance, vehicles, everything, genetics. You're going to be so far in the hole, and you haven't even had a chance to make one red cent or grow
one of the things that they
one
are
weed.
doing now with the applications is a large part of the application process is trying to prove that you can be a successful business. You have to have a certain amount of money, bonded, and you have to
Why
show
does that prove success?
because, like you said, it's going to cost a lot of money, but you also have to show that you have growing facilities, and you have all these things in place, and you have experience, and you're being judged on that, and that's part of the point system.
Right. But like if somebody already has all of that stuff established, that person's a large MSO, a multi-state operator. That's
Right.
somebody
So
who
it's not,
already
it's really favoring them.
turnkey.
Yeah,
Yes.
nobody's going to be able to do this without having some major backers or some MSOs that are already in the business that can just come in and put in their establishment here, just move it over to
You know what
Florida.
would be so cool is if they made all the applicants grow weed and like an environment, like a very controlled environment. They all have to grow a couple of strains and then test it to make sure it's safe. And whoever has the safest, most accurate, most, quality bud gets the license. A
Yeah,
grow off.
that would be fun.
That would be better
Who
because
would judge that?
Cynthia Brewer from the Marijuana Mind / Kaija Labs and her co-host JNasty. But like I said, we are expecting 1 million patients by summer, which means 8 more licenses in addition to the 22 that we're talking about now will be awarded between June of this year and July of next year. or sorry, July of this year and June of next year. So that's 8 more. And if the patient count keeps going up, we're looking at voting for legalization also. So this is like a license to print money, like we've always talked about. And these 30 licenses that are going to be awarded between now and next year are going to be the only ones that can grow if this adult use ballot initiative passes. Segue.
Because it's only, okay, so that's an interesting point, is that even though there's theoretically 21 or 22 licenses that are
Yes.
going to be issued, that if they only allow, let's say, 8 of them in the next year, and then that bill passes, part of the language of the bill, and we're talking about the...
Actually, no, I know what you're getting at, that like if they aren't awarded a license before the ballot initiative passes, they can't
Smart
do
and
it.
Safe Florida.
No, there
The
is
ballot
language in there
initiative,
that
yeah.
allows them to continue to license through the process. But
So if you
something,
get a license after it's passed, you'll be grandfathered into being able to grow, obviously.
because the original language in 3-1-986 about awarding based off the patient count is
Mhm.
still going to be in effect until legalization takes effect, which would be voted on in 2024, fall of 2024, but will not take effect until 6 months after it passes. So we're still looking at a medical program with medical language 3-1-986 being implemented like it's supposed to be finally. It's just coming at a very awkward time where Trulieve has been pushing this smart, what is it called?
Smart and Safe Florida.
Okay, legalization effort, which is a ballot initiative. And we'll talk about that coming up. But I'm saying that by the time we hit 1 million in summer and 8 more get added onto the 22, that's 30.
Mhm.
Those are all licensed. We will then, like, before we hit another milestone, we will be voting on adult use.
Right. So if
the patient count is
let's say that
poised.
Smart and Safe Florida passes, the language in there says that only the current licensees can grow, correct?
Yes.
So that's an important point also, because if you're hoping for home grow, it's not coming anytime
Not going to
soon.
happen.
And so Smart and Safe Florida, let's say it passes, there's a good chance that it will. It's being
Oh, yeah.
sponsored by Trulieve, who of course engineered that, you know, and on all the dispensaries, I'm sure are very happy about this. If they have a license already, if you have a license, you can grow. So so the question I just want to clarify is that so there's 30, let's say there's 30 licensees when this happens,
Mhm.
and then the next part of those 22, the next 10 are awarded, but after it's been implemented, will they be allowed to grow?
Yes, they
Even though
can't.
they're
A ballot initiative for legalization cannot conflict with the
Supersede.
current language for medical program. So this is
Okay.
something where it will not conflict, but like it's a weird, awkward time to be going through the licensing process and know that if you get one, you're the only people that can grow for an adult use program that will be probably passing in fall of 2024 and implemented 6 months after.
Assuming, well, that's dependent on who's elected as the next governor, right? So if you
The
have
governor's already been elected.
who?
Desantis is
No,
our
the
governor
next
by a
governor,
landslide.
the next
No,
governor.
there's okay. You're talking like gubernatorial race because he's been presidentially elected.
Yeah, he's not. You think can he run again in 2024?
He's going to be running for a different type of office. It's not going
Right.
to be the governor's office.
So I'm saying the next governor, the next one that's elected at the end of 2024, if it's someone that is pro-cannabis, it'll be implemented rather quickly. Probably by mid-2025, it'll be fully implemented. If, however, it's
Highly
somebody that
unlikely
is
pro-cannabis candidate gets
if there's someone that is against cannabis, they could have the ability to hold it up, because that's
No.
what happened. That's what happened in Maine. They
But
voted for it many
the
years
same
before it was
time that
actually
we
implemented.
vote for adult use is the
Mhm.
same time that we're voting for the president of the United States of America.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Right.
there's no way for anybody to just like thwart that progress, because it'll be already passed by the voters by the time the new governor, in the event that DeSantis runs for president and gets elected and
Mhm.
wins, okay, which could definitely happen, his replacement really would be more of a placeholder in my mind, because he's
There's still going to be
representing.
the governor of Florida.
Yeah, but I'm saying like he's like the midterm interim governor, because the other one went to go to a better job. And I just don't think he's going to have as much pull. I don't know. But here's what I know. people
Mhm.
are not going to be able to keep, putting any barriers up as long as these 30, 22 first, and these progressively incremental licensure process that the OMMU has implemented goes smoothly, because they're only doing a few at a time. I have a feeling it won't, because it's what the Florida, that the program should have like 30 more opportunities, which makes it a very competitive market for patients.
Wait,
You
30
get better
total, not 30
discount.
more.
You what?
8 more. So they're not 30 more, 30
30.
total.
It'll be patient count of 1 million by summer, which adds 8 onto the 22 that they're talking about right now.
Oh, so you're saying an actual 30 new licenses.
Yes. So we have
on
22
top of the
growers.
22.
Yes. So 50. So let's do 52 total.
Okay.
By the time the implementation of all of this language is done, 52 like MMTCs, which I
That
think is
would
great.
that would make it much more competitive. The problem is that they're still all vertically integrated. And so it really limits the market in terms of people being able to be entrepreneurs and enter the market,
Yes.
and it really closes it off only to these massive conglomerates, these
I know.
MSOs. It's not
I know.
really fair. And again,
No.
I'll say it again because I haven't said it at least in a show, that is it fair that you get these massive conglomerates, these MSOs, these businesses that are for-profit businesses, and
Mhm.
yet they're licensed to create right now what is only medicinal. But even if it wasn't, even if it was, recreational, but is it fair that they can grow it, and someone that needs it, particularly as a patient, that you can't grow it for your own personal use? You have to buy what this for-profit business is selling, and they don't have any kind of limitation in terms of, except for the market, but there's no limitation saying like, oh, they can only make so much profit because it's a medicine, and
Right.
you have to buy your medicine from them. They can sell it for whatever they want to sell it for, as long as the market will bear that. But it's simply not fair. There should be, you have to choose one or
Nothing
the
in
other.
this, nothing about cannabis life is fair. We both
If
know
it's
this. But the
if it's
one thing
medical, then it's medical. It's a medicine, and someone
that's why
should
we
be
don't
able
pay
to
tax
grow
on
that
it.
plant themselves. Or if you say, no, I'm sorry, only these companies can grow it, then there should be a limit on the profit. Like they should only be able to profit 10% because it's a medicine that they're selling, it's
Right.
not recreational. People
Well,
need it.
when adult use takes over, what we're going to
Mhm.
see is an excessive amount of taxable, like a taxable, um, what is the word I'm looking for? I just totally blanked because I'm staring out and I see a weird bird on my window. Anyways, I'm sorry. Florida will generate an excessive amount of money based off of the taxes charged to adult use consumers when we go adult use.
I would expect
Patients
it to
will
be
benefit by not
30 to
having to pay
30 to
taxes.
40%
Oh,
tax.
it'll be upward of more than that, because the state government we are a high tax state because we're a tourist state. So we've got 7.5%. The state could tax it maybe 25%. And then also local municipalities can tax it on top. That money, that revenue that we generate off of an adult use market with an additional 1 million patients that are logged into our registry, which will probably stay there because they get a discount by not having to pay the taxes, and they'll probably get a discount on the medicine price because you want to maintain that loyalty, because tourism is shifting and it's never going to be the same
And
face.
sometimes there's also the benefit of they might be allowed to have higher percentages or larger quantities than someone that doesn't have a license.
Right. So maintaining a medical card is very beneficial for anybody in Florida, even after an adult use, because there is benefit to that. Yeah, we had to go through all this crap before. And yes, you have to pay the fee to the state. But at the end of the day, not having to pay the excessive amount of tax that's going to be on every product and getting like a little bit of special treatment is going to be worth it. So right now, Trulieve hit a big milestone with their ballot initiative. They've already invested upwards of $20 million into this entire campaign. They've reached their first goal of 222,898 signatures, which has now pushed the Safe and Smart Florida into Supreme Court review.
Which that's a big deal.
Huge deal. Not everybody, first of all, Supreme Court review is where everybody gets
Mhm.
dissected. Like you can get signatures and be like, do you want to legalize weed? Because they ask me in the parking lot over at the store all the time. I'm like, dude, I was here yesterday. Like, I'm good. I've signed things and I love weed. You know, you have my support, whatever. I'm not sure if I'm gonna sign it, but they have my support, like emotionally. The Supreme Court review is going to dissect it and make sure that this ballot initiative is going to satisfy or doesn't violate, I guess you could say, two different things, which the past regulate Florida, MILF, make it legal Florida. That was my favorite. You have to have a single objective, which they do. It's anyone over 21 can have weed. The end. You have to get it from this approved source. There you go. No homegrown, nothing. And it's also not misleading to voters. One of the past ballot initiatives had some language about a significant amount, or the way that they word things. It needs to be definite. Like the one focus is adult use for 21 and over. The end. End of story. That is their one single focus objective. They will probably make Supreme Court review and get through that to collect the rest of their signatures. What do you think?
I think there's a pretty high probability. What would the Supreme Court turn them down for? I mean, what would their...
If they had language like in the Regulate Florida one, they had language about home grow and adult use. That's not a single objective. The Make It Legal Florida, I think, had some language in there about significant amounts or sufficient amounts or something, you know, a very broad piece of language or broad
and it just,
word.
you know, on principle, because it was called MILF, couldn't be passed.
And yeah, of course, they can't pass something that says like MILF. We're going to pass MILF. Supreme Court supports MILF. No, it's got to be like in the Smart and Safe Florida, they have definite language about the amounts, the location in which to procure, the people that can participate, and they're all definite. They are exact figures and they are exact language. So
I would be flabbergasted if it didn't pass.
Oh no, they'll pass.
And then they have to get the rest of the signatures.
That's the hard part.
Which is what, like 600,000
No,
signatures?
891,589 signatures.
But that's the total. How many do they have? 200 and something thousand, right?
They have over 222,000.
Still need
like,
about
only
600,000 more.
Do they get to add those on?
Oh, I would assume. I think so. I think it's a total amount. They have to
because
meet
nobody
that
wants
threshold.
to sign it twice.
They have to meet that threshold to even appear to the Supreme Court and have the potential to go on.
And they're in review. They made it to review. That's a big deal. And then if and when the Supreme Court will, you know, allow it to be put on the ballot, they have to make sure they have the signatures to get on the ballot. So they don't have a lot of time left.
So I want to go back to another question that we had mentioned before is, let's assume that, you know, flower became allowed in Florida because, you know, somebody had backed Desantis, probably Trulieve, let's just say it, you know, that wanted flower. And, you know, he had made some kind of deal and said, okay, if I get elected and you give me, you know, like however many millions and help me, blah, 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 that's what I'll do for you. So he did it. You know, he probably wasn't that happy, but he did it. And Trulieve is still massive player, the biggest player.
Yeah.
And they're openly sponsoring, you know, they're spearheading this bill and sponsoring it. So if they don't want any more licensees because it's only competition, even though they've done just fine against the competition. Desantis doesn't care for cannabis and he doesn't really want any more licensees. And he's actively actually tried to hold up the process. So what in the background is going on that they're now all of a sudden opening up these new licensees? Who's pushing this?
People were threatening litigation, which would have been incredibly smart and sound and probably would have won. You don't want people suing the state for not implementing the will of the voters.
They've never shied away from that before.
I'm just saying, like, the significant amount of voters that were in support of Amendment 2 and the massive amount of patients that have been qualified under our program in such a short amount of time. I'm talking like 2018 to now having like 63,000 patients to almost 800,000. I mean, we have a huge support, and maybe they don't all go and vote. Okay. Maybe the 73% that passed Amendment 2 were not all pot smoking patients. Okay. Because most of the pot smokers I know don't always make it to the ballot. Okay. Box to like weigh in. But
No,
I'm
it's
telling
pretty
you now,
bipartisan.
they'll find a way if it's going to be adult use, because it's so much harder being a patient in this program, because you're always on edge. You're always like kind of looking over your shoulder, kind of wondering like, okay, am I going to get in trouble? Like, do I need to go straight home with my products? You know, like it's like being kind of ostracized for being a patient. They don't really support you in the government side. And so you're just like the ugly stepchild of the healthcare in Florida. You're like the one that likes the green stuff, the one that likes holistic medicine.
I had a patient that was pulled over recently, and the police officer, they thought they smelled some, right? Which actually,
That's not even probable cause. Get an attorney, call Michael Minority. We'll take care of it. First
which
of all, you have to
actually,
have two.
they're no longer allowed to search a vehicle based on the sight or smell of cannabis.
Smell-o-vision does not count.
That's not why but anyways, that's not the point of the story. So, she said, well, maybe you smelled it from before, but I never drive under the influence. I haven't done it now, but I do have a card. And, and he said, I want to look in your purse. So I have cannabis in it. He said, well, you can't have cannabis because you're driving in a vehicle. She's like, well, how would I then buy it and transport it? And he said, well, you can do that, but it has to be, in a secure separate container in the trunk of the car, which obviously is just bull, right? Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that, going to your point, that they are not being that's first of all, for the listeners, none of that's true. You could actually, now, maybe it's not a good idea because you're inviting, something to happen, but you could have it on the seat next to you, open in plain view.
That's where I put it when I buy it, in the front seat. Strap her into the seatbelt and then drive and do the rest of my errands.
And that is perfectly
I don't go
legal.
straight home.
That is legal. It's not alcohol. There's no open container law.
But is that going to be probable cause if I got pulled over for a routine traffic stop when Cynthia goes a little fast in a school zone or whatever, and then he sees it in the front seat? Is that considered probable cause? Because he's now seen that I'm a pot smoker without me disclosing.
If he cited that as his probable cause, I believe that you would win in court.
I would totally win. Totally win.
Do you want to invite, because, they could always they could say whatever they want, right? A police officer, if he's a little smarter than that, isn't going to say, I saw marijuana there, because that will be thrown out. He'll say, oh, well, I thought that she was driving erratically.
I wouldn't be speeding in a school zone if I was high. Okay. I'd probably be waiting at the stop sign for it to turn green, or like, trying to not think that the kids were talking shit about me behind my back or something. I don't know. I would not be on the street. And if they did say, okay, well, I'm pulling you over for speeding, but then I also see that you have weed in the front seat of your car strapped in like it's a baby, then I would be like, yeah, but I only sped through the school zone. I didn't smoke through the school zone. So like, take me to jail. Anyways, everyone needs to remember, keep your mouth shut. I do not recall I need an attorney. I do not recall I need an attorney. You can put any spin or octave on it you want. Most people get in trouble because they can't keep their damn mouth shut. So I do not recall I need an attorney.
But you are not breaking the law by transporting cannabis, and there are no specific rules of how you have to transport it.
It has to be in the container in which you purchased.
Okay.
It has to have your patient sticker on it. It cannot be removed. And that's about it. Yeah. If I were you, I would also keep it in the bag in which you purchased it, or just hide it in a compartment. Do not put it like in, people I know have vape pens in like their center console. And I'm like, dude, just.
But it's allowed. It is allowed.
No, you can't.
Are you inviting, is it not a fight that you want?
That implies that you're participating in the consumption of cannabis while driving. And that's
It
going to be,
doesn't, but it doesn't prove anything. And in fact,
and you can't prove it.
you are allowed to like you can't sit in your car with the keys in it and drink alcohol, even if the car is off.
You
But
can't smoke weed in your car.
can't you?
It has to
That's
be a
true.
private property. It
Is
has
is
to,
not your car your private property? That's why it can't just be
but
searched
you can't be
without
within a
probable
certain
cause.
amount of feet of a school. Or wait, that's
Okay.
actually for opening dispensaries. Listen, be smart, smoke before you get in the car or after you get out of the car.
Smoke before you get out of the
Hotboxing
car.
used to be cool, but you can hotbox your bathroom if you're trying to
Just
have a good time.
know your rights, because
Yes.
the officers of the law probably actually don't know the laws in this case.
And
They're
they will
new.
100% exploit the uneducated patient more so than the educated patient. If you know exactly how far you can go before you get in trouble and you challenge them with respect.
Right.
Don't
I
be
was going to say, be
disrespectful.
polite, be
Yeah.
respectful, but
I'm
don't.
sorry, sir, but you're fucking wrong. Like something like that. Or like, sorry, officer, but you're full of shit, Shiva. Something
Yes.
like that. So like be respectful, be clear, direct, don't be emotional because that makes everybody uncomfortable, including myself. Like I don't want you crying. Don't cry. They're not going to take your tears as sympathy, and you're a pot smoker. Pot smokers don't cry. Okay? Remember that. That's a new t-shirt. But be respectful and say, I'm sorry, officer, but you know what I would do? I'd print out the regulations and highlight it. Be like, here, if you'd like to refer, here you go.
Maybe you should keep it in your glove compartment.
I make copies and I hand them out to law enforcement every time they pull me over. I'm like, do you really want this mess? And then they just let me go. And I say, you can keep that.
What do you make copies of?
Of the regulations.
For what?
For cannabis use and transport.
But because you're expecting them to pull you over.
I'm expecting everyone
problem.
to pull me over and everyone to give me a hassled hard time. No, I'm kidding. I don't do that.
Tell me about Representative
I want to do that
Stu.
now. Representative Stu. So Greggy out of he's a Florida representative, Republican
Stu.
out in DC. This is his third attempt at trying to introduce a bill or that is the Marijuana 1, 2, 3 Act, moving obviously cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3.
Which
I love
I
the play on words. Major points for being.
Which actually you and I think is a terrible idea.
Horrible idea. I love Greg Stube for trying 3 times in a row, maybe third time's a charm, but rescheduling it and descheduling it both suck.
Right. We've mentioned this many a time, but it's worth mentioning again because it's a fine detail that makes all the difference in the world.
So much different, because let's talk about re versus D. People need to have like a little acronym or something to remember, because it'll be helpful. If you deschedule it and you remove it off of the list completely, that means it's no longer a drug. And what else in the world is not considered a drug but can be smoked? Tobacco. Guess who'd be waiting in the cut to have their piece of the cannabis industry? The tobacco industry. And of course they would want it because they would make a freaking killing off of it. And they have the scalability to issue a bunch of pre-rolls, and they can do it and they can participate and make a very large amount of money. Now, if we deschedule it. So
but why? But you're making an argument against descheduling. That's what we want.
I'm making an argument against both, to be honest with you. I don't like either one.
Well, you don't want to. You have to choose. It's either going to stay.
No one says I have to choose anything.
It's going to either stay scheduled as it is, as Schedule 1, which obviously you're not for, or
But
it's going to become descheduled or rescheduled. So the difference is descheduled is it's not a drug anymore. It's not a pharmaceutical drug anymore.
It's not a drug at all.
It becomes treated like alcohol,
like tobacco,
right?
It's regulated probably by age restricted, probably cultivation restricted to make sure that, tobacco, they can put all kinds of crazy stuff in there, but they also are going to grow it a certain way. And you smoke it and you ignite it And
it will be regulated, but normal regulations that we've come to expect for alcohol and tobacco. It's
right.
it's not going to be illegal. You can have commerce.
It's
And
just
as
going to
long
be
as you're,
so easily able to participate in that it will be taken over by the tobacco industry.
well, maybe so, but if it's rescheduled,
Versus D.
then it remains a pharmaceutical,
It
which
remains
means
a drug, not a pharmaceutical.
that the DEA and the
No,
the FDA,
let's try this from the beginning.
the FDA
It
should
can
have
be
been-
moved or rescheduled from a 1 with heroin, okay, to a 3, which is what? Like cocaine
probably no, no. Cocaine
is
is
2.
cocaine is a 2 for 1, is mostly a 1, but it has one legitimate use, which is nosebleeds that
No,
can't.
we know this. Yes, I remember.
But otherwise, Schedule 2s include things like all of the you know, Norco, Vicodin, oxycodone,
Oh, the good stuff.
Adderall. These are all Schedule 2s.
Okay, we got LSD, ecstasy, and heroin in
Those are Schedule
1.
1.
Yes, with marijuana. Okay.
So they're only they have no.
Schedule 2 is cocaine, methamphetamines, oxycodone, Adderall, Ritalin, Vicodin. Schedule
we
3
can
would be
write
like the fun
prescriptions for
stuff.
these, but it's very controlled.
3 is like Tylenol with codeine.
What is Xanax
Ketamine,
3 or 4?
anabolic steroids.
Or benzodiazepines 3 or 4?
Let me check. Aren't you the doctor?
I think they might even be 4, even though I feel like they should be a 3.
I feel like there should be. So what we're getting at is that in the event that they reschedule it and they assign it to a different number than number 1, because we really could all agree that maybe just possibly it's not going to be just like LSD or heroin, you know, like.
Wait, I don't think LSD is a
marijuana.
good example.
No, LSD is a great.
LSD has a lot of medicinal benefits we've been finding.
I agree. I think that should be rescheduled to a medicinal benefit number that's a little bit more, appropriate. But like, let's just take heroin. Is there any medical benefit to heroin? Let's take a little heroin and talk about it for a second. Take a little black tar. I don't even know how you would do it. I know like the inject. No, I'm good. Here's what we're talking about. Heroin. Is that medically beneficial to anybody?
It's too dangerous, even if there's
nosebleeds, even
if there's some small medical benefit to a small, people, they could take something else that was much safer and better and more controlled and didn't have to be injected illegally intravenously.
The risk outweighs the reward.
Let's just say basically no.
Absolutely not. Heroin is not going to fix your arthritis. Okay. So if you have heroin on a list and then cannabis, which has been widely accepted nationwide, worldwide, in a very short amount of time, more information is coming out about the medical benefit. People are seeing benefit from it. Then maybe don't put it next to something that could like legit kill you, because cannabis can't kill you. So I feel like if you can die from it, then it should be higher. And if you can't, it should be lower.
We're gonna put a little thumbtack in that statement, because we're gonna come back to that, by the way, that it can't kill you. That's it. There's some interesting news on that. We're gonna come back. Okay.
Yeah, you're gonna be one of we are gonna talk about this, but let's not digress. So if it gets rescheduled to something like a 2 with like cocaine and meth, which Dr. Davis does believe
not meth.
Cocaine.
Not meth.
No, cocaine.
Legal methamphetamines. Meth, you're talking about, the street drug meth.
Yeah, no, meth
that is a Schedule 1. So when you say meth, you mean like methylphenidate, for example, which is Ritalin.
How about the stimulants?
Like
there you go.
Adderall, like Ritalin, for example.
Okay.
Those are Schedule 2s.
Cocaine.
Cocaine barely.
It's on the Schedule 2.
It's
and
on
unless you have a nosebleed and you
but
cannot stop it, and your doctor's really cool and happens to have a little
no,
bit
it can only be done
flow.
in an emergency room setting or a hospital.
Do they actually have cocaine on site at hospitals?
Probably, yes.
Like, here, take a bump. Your nose will stop bleeding because we're on a time
A
schedule.
bigger hospital. I'm sure if you went to
You
like
have to go get
Shands
to this guy's
Hospital,
busted leg that
they
fell off.
probably have a vault that has a little bit of cocaine in it.
Listen, you came into a hospital first off with a nosebleed. We already think you're like really shitty person, but we're gonna give you a little bit of cocaine. And then this other guy whose leg fell off in a bicycle accident, he's gonna get maybe a Tylenol 3, which is like schedule 3. But like we're gonna give your nosebleed some cocaine, and then you have fun with your bump, go dance the night away. And then this guy
I've
gets
never
like
in all of
2
my
ibuprofen.
years seen cocaine used legally.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think they have it at the hospital to stop your nosebleed. They're going to make fun
They
of you.
might have a little bit, in specialized pharmacies at big hospitals, but it's so probably rarely used that it's negligible.
I think anyone who
The
goes to the
point, but the
hospital with
point
a
we're
nosebleed
losing,
is negligible.
we're losing the trees through the forest. But the point is that
That's a cute saying.
if you reschedule it, it's going to be an FDA controlled drug. You're going to have pharmaceutical companies kind of ruling it, and it
They're
will
going
be
to ask for it to be exclusive to them because they're a highly regulated industry that already knows how to produce it at scale safely. They have a lot of hoops they have to jump through to get that opportunity. And they also can do it in a very clean, safe environment and very efficiently.
There's really only one or two benefits to having it rescheduled, which is one, insurance would pay for it. And two, they would have to, if it was rescheduled as a necessary medication, they would have to cover it. That would be one benefit. And the second benefit is that the testing of it and the safety of it would have to be very, very rigorous.
Yes.
But
And that's fine.
it would create a lot of obstacles for people, and it would be expensive and difficult to deal with. And there'd probably be a lot of regulations people didn't want.
Well, who's going to grow it? Who's going to, so
and,
like
and
right
it'll
now,
be very exclusive group that could grow it.
right now we've got Marinol, which is allowed, right?
Yes, but that's a synthetic, really.
Right. That has actually caused deaths.
We're putting
That's
we
where
put a
we're
pin in
heading
that.
with
You're
this
digressing.
conversation. This is the segue, the third segue. This has been a very transitionally amazing episode because everything is segueing perfectly. We are going to transition this conversation about synthetic cannabis and some of the horrible misinformation, in my opinion, that has been spread out there by a good institution. We are talking about the FAU, Florida Atlantic University Cannabis Study. Justin, take it away. I want you to start because I'm just fired up about this.
I think it was done by through the School of Nursing, I believe. And
it doesn't matter.
Basically, what they were trying to look at was, are there any deaths attributable to cannabis, to the use of marijuana?
It was the first study to show statewide cannabis-related deaths in Florida, which is right there an incredibly backwards way of saying.
There's a few ridiculous things about this study. First of all, they lumped, as far as the general study goes, they're calling cannabis and synthetic cannabinoids. Right. They're basically saying they do separate, they do parse it out eventually, but as far as the overall study goes, they lumped them together. And I will also say that even the total number of deaths, including the synthetic cannabinoids, was very, very low. It wasn't zero, but it was terribly low. Wasn't it like 300 and something total?
Well, okay. So the first thing they did wrong was to classify. So we all know that if it's a hemp product, it is derived from cannabis sativa L. If it is a medical marijuana product, it is cannabis sativa L. If it is a black market weed product, it's cannabis sativa L. No matter what, it is all coming from the same exact spot. It is just genetically grown, okay? It's all the same cannabis sativa L, but each one has different traits, okay, that separate it from one another. It's like traits of your children, okay? You're all going to come from parents that are going to be cannabis sativa L parents, but you're going to be maybe Justin's grown with a
I
little less
I think
THC
that
and high CBD,
a
which would be
good
hemp.
analogy might be dogs. So they're all dogs are considered to be a single species.
That's a good actually,
They
or
can they
plants,
they
either
can
way.
all they can all actually mate with one another and have viable offspring, but yet obviously we have very distinct
That's
breeds,
not true though. You can't have a Saint Bernard knock up a Chihuahua.
Well, that's only because you could
You
you
shouldn't.
obviously the Chihuahua would not be able to harbor such large offspring. So in that sense, she might die.
Yeah.
But if you took artificial insemination and you did it, you put it into another dog or whatever,
Yeah.
they would be viable offspring genetically speaking.
I like how we covered this very quickly from cannabis to dog breeding, but it is a good point. Dogs are a great example. They're all dogs. Okay. But they are different. There's different traits that they have
And they can
inherited.
be wildly different, yet
Yes.
they can interbreed.
They
They're
could
the
be
same.
docile. They could be active and very energetic, just like cannabis.
Mhm.
Cannabis can be low in THC and high in CBD, which is what we consider hemp,
Okay.
or it could be incredibly
So
low in THC and CBD
what
and it'd
is
be hemp
so move on
fiber.
with the flaw in the study. One of the flaws. I think there's several, but what are you getting at here?
What I'm getting at is that they said cannabis and synthetic cannabis, like you said, the fact that they were talking about the study as the study of deaths related to cannabis, comma, synthetic cannabinoids. And, like that's right there saying that it's all the same, and it's
Mm,
not.
No, it's not at all.
That is a huge problem, and it's a big misinformation. They said, and I can't find anywhere in the study what
Mhm.
people actually died of. They said most of the deaths were accidental. Okay. So it's like saying, even if I wasn't a cannabis user and you took a bunch of people
Right.
within this age group, a lot of people are going to die by accident.
Well, first of all, they parsed it out a little bit in the study, right? They mentioned, okay, well, admittedly, the vast majority of the deaths were due to synthetic cannabinoids, right? So they admit that probably
Yes.
begrudgingly, but they admit that they shouldn't have been lumped together anyways. But it's then interesting that, like you said, if you look at the causes, let's just take the synthetics out, which is the vast majority of them. So
Mhm.
there's not even many deaths that they can cite from non-synthetic, from regular schmegular
Except
cannabis,
for
but
accidental, where
the ones that
cannabis
they
was
do
detected.
are accidental, right?
And another drug could have been present and actually
Right,
was in the cadavers that they studied. So
right.
you're pretty much saying, if I am a heroin user, okay, and I also dabble in a little bit of weed, and then I got into a car accident, that they are going to blame the cannabis as well as the heroin, as well as the car
And
accident
the
and
other
the
thing
death.
is, how are they determining that someone was impaired versus that they
They
just had it in
can't.
their system?
They
So that's
can't.
again a major flaw in the study, because they're not the person could have used it a day ago, 2 days ago, 3 days ago. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter, and they may not be impaired whatsoever. So how do they don't even know that? They
They
just
don't
found it.
separate anything though. So
Yeah.
it's very misleading that they say, and I'm quoting here, findings showed that nearly 28% of deaths caused by cannabis and synthetic cannabis, which are not the same. Okay.
Mhm.
In that little family tree we were talking about with the dogs being different species, synthetic cannabinoids is not one of them. Hemp, industrial hemp, medical cannabis, marijuana, whatever, those are all related species, but synthetics are not weed. Synthetics are genetically modified canna imposters that people stick into their hemp and cannabis products, and they kill people, mostly in the hemp sector of the world, not in the cannabis
I
sector
I
of
wonder,
marijuana.
do you think some of the products like Delta 8s, for example, are they counting those as synthetics or not?
No, I don't think they're counting those as synthetics. There are a list of synthetic cannabinoids that you can test for as a way of ensuring that people are only using the proper parts of the plant and they aren't
Mm.
throwing anything additional. A lot of overseas products that are made with CBD in them, branded, sent over here, and then shipped all over the country. Those can have synthetics. We've seen it on the instrumentation, but it does not require us to look for them in any language. Some states do, but our state doesn't. ask us to look for synthetics. It's more likely to be present or prevalent in the hemp industry space and not the medicinal space, because they get to play with all the THC they want. They're not going to add synthetics to it. That would be dumb.
So I want to point out that beyond the fact that, it's really impossible to know if these people that had marijuana detected in them were even impaired by marijuana, that let's say that, like one of the accidents they listed was drowning, right?
Yeah. So it said among the findings, 88% of those who died from cannabis and synthetic cannabis were men. Interesting. Between the ages of 45 and 54, of course. They were non-Hispanic white men. 100% of the cannabis related deaths occurred in urban counties. In rural counties, which doesn't make any sense because you just said 100% were in urban.
Yeah.
Now you're saying in rural counties, 28.3% of deaths were related to synthetic cannabis use, and they were Black people.
So if it was really due
in the rural side,
if it was really due to the cannabis itself, it should be, much closer to 50-50 between men and women, as opposed, because otherwise you have to look at like what kind of risky behavior are men taking. I don't think men are more likely to just be
they're not
dying.
even looking at comorbidities or pre-existing conditions.
And right. And also, should it make a difference that they're urban versus rural?
But it said 100% of the people that died were in urban counties, but then it says in rural counties, 28.3% of the deaths were related to synthetics and 39.9% were African American. So 100% in urban, and they're white males, but then it goes to Black males after you go to the rural areas, and 99% of individuals using cannabis and synthetics died from accidents. What did the 1% die of?
I don't know, but even if it's so my point is that let's say it's an accident, and you drown, it's such a low number that I would say there's probably more people drowning that didn't have marijuana in their system than did. So you could almost make an argument that you're less likely to drown if you have cannabis in your system.
You are less likely to drown if you know how to swim. That could be a fact. And I'm saying people die from drowning because they don't know how to swim, not because they smoked pot. Okay.
It's just
who you blame. Here's the other one. The highest count of deaths related to cannabis use was in 2019. Okay. But the highest count for synthetic cannabis cause of death was in 2018. And all of these, it says, most of these accidents, all these deaths were accidents, were due to drug intoxications, not cannabis intoxication, drug intoxication. So what they're referencing is there was something else found in the system when there was a motor vehicle collision, when there was a blunt force trauma due to a collision, when there was an accident. 4 individuals died from drowning, but under the influence of cannabis. That one it bothers me because I don't believe that 4 people would smoke weed and then go swimming.
Maybe they were under the influence of cannabis,
and
but
something else.
But they also were under the influence probably of something else. And it doesn't show that the cannabis is the cause, regardless, even if it was only cannabis.
It's the people.
It doesn't show that cannabis was the cause, right? How many?
Justin, plain devil's advocate here. If I'm a pot smoker and I can't swim, why would I go into a lake? If I'm not a pot smoker and I can't swim, why would I go into a lake? Am I going to, that's what I'm saying. You shouldn't be doing activities that you don't know how to do, either under the influence or not under the influence. You are the cause of your drowning.
I wouldn't go swimming in a lake.
You can't swim
at nighttime in Florida anyways, because
they never said it was nighttime. It could have been daytime. It could have been a pool at a YMCA, Justin. It said they drowned because of because of cannabis.
The problem is it's such a ridiculous study, so flawed, doesn't really show anything, and yet it gets national coverage. You would never
pushing a lot of PhDs to take the stance of this is a public risk. This is a risk to the public.
Right, because you're going to now have this study, which is a totally meaningless study,
Just
it's
like
going to
the
be
Johns
cited.
Hopkins one.
It's going to be cited by all of these people as, oh, you see, it's risky and it causes deaths. But this study would make it nowhere if it were about, any other substance. But yet, it's like it's going to be touted as a study that's cited over and over again when you have politicians or medical people that are against it trying to prove their point, and they're going to hold this study up as if it's meaningful.
Well, look at who funded the study.
Yeah, I was going to say who funded the study.
Okay, the study was funded by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, Substance Use Disorder, Evidence-Based Practice Training Awards, and American Association of College Nursing. So I think there was an agenda here that was very quickly.
100%
They
an agenda.
had an opportunity to prove that synthetic cannabinoids, which are incredibly running rampant throughout the industry in the hemp world, hurt people. We've seen people that, veterans, military servicemen and women, older people, younger people, actually died because something that they thought was a CBD product, okay, it wasn't just CBD. There was other crap in there, and they died because that other stuff, it wasn't always fentanyl, like everyone talks about. It could be other things that are not supposed to be in your body that are in there. And you don't know, because either the lab that tested it and vetted it doesn't look for those. We can't look for everything. We can't reverse engineer it. The regulations don't make us do it. There's a gap here that we need to close. They could have had the opportunity to close this gap by informing people about the bad side of synthetic.
But you have a biased backing group that wants
Yes.
a study that's negative. And I will tell you that
They want support for their
Board of
cause.
Nursing is wildly prejudiced against cannabis. And we actually, we saw that when we had that guest on our show a few times.
She's gone through the struggle of a lifetime she had to go to rehab for cannabis use that didn't even happen in the state of Florida while she was a perfectly fine patient, that she was exploited and just annihilated by the nursing, like the Board of Medicine.
Had to spend tens of thousands of dollars,
had to go to rehab
and not go to rehab. Well, that was part of the cost, but not work for almost a year.
She had to say that she was addicted to cannabis,
and still has to go every time tries to get a job, has to like go through this extreme process, has a lot of places that won't even hire her.
And she was never actively working as a nurse in the state of Florida that is now punishing her. So everything that she's had to go through was because she applied to be a nurse in our state and to serve Floridians that needed help. So she never even got the job, and they took her application and her drug tox screen as a way of exploiting her for cannabis use. It's bullshit. So yes, the nursing side of this study is bullshit. Funding bullshit, producing bullshit. I think they shouldn't be able to publicly release stuff like this. It's incredibly like defamatory, and it's libel and slander. And I love those words. True Leave taught me to love those words.
True Leave taught you.
Yes. You have to know the difference between libel, slander, defamation of character, all that stuff. They don't take no shit. That Truly, they will come after you. So don't talk shit.
Did you know that in Colorado, they now have a vending machine that has cannabis in it?
That's actually probably the best news I've heard all episode.
It sounds better than it is, though, because it's inside of a dispensary.
I love that. Now, this just in. Well, actually, I can't even talk about that. I'm going to say, it is awesome that they are allowed to use vending machines to distribute cannabis. I would love to be able to get there one day, but probably not. And most new states are actually prohibiting the use of vending machines. Colorado is just so cool. Like they're cool. We're not cool. Nobody's like, wow, look at.
Are there any vending machines that distribute alcohol?
I don't know. I mean, there used to be vending machines that would distribute like Proactive at the mall or cigarettes at the bar, or you can pretty much make dispensation of anything monetarily reimbursed with coins.
I mean, the
I paid for a
argument,
soda with a credit card the other day.
one of the arguments obviously is that, well, oh, someone has to be 21 to be able to buy alcohol, for example.
Don't put the
But
vending machine in a school.
But with today's technology, you could easily, have like a facial recognition and a driver's license that gets scanned and then has to match with facial recognition. For example, it would be easy to engineer something like that.
Put it in a place where only people over 21 can be, like a bar, but actually not really a bar.
No, but
Maybe like,
right, that doesn't make sense.
I'm just saying, like, you're not going to put it outside of a school or a pharmacy or a Publix. You're going to put them probably within a dispensary where, like, sometimes you don't want to talk to people. I don't want to talk to people. I don't want them to try and upsell me. I know exactly why I'm at your dispensary, because I want to buy this weed. Do you have these weeds? Sell me these weeds. And then, stop trying to upsell me for like 39%, which I don't believe anyways. So I always want to pull like my card out and be like, dude, I just want mids. I like smoking mids. This girl smokes mids. I'm proud of it. That means it's real. The end. This is a great show.
I have a question for you. This
Okay.
is brought to me by a patient.
Okay.
So every product has to be tested by the lab. Every end product, correct?
Yes. Every
And it has
retail
to be
product.
labeled.
Yes.
So she was saying that, she can only really afford to buy in bulk the ground flour because it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah. So you can get 7 grams, which is a quarter for $20.
She's been told that this ground flour is not shake and it's, real, just as good flour, but it's ground. And her thought and my thought, we both went to the same place, is okay, if it's not shake and it's like top quality flour that just happens to be ground, then why is it literally 400% cheaper than Bud?
You answered your own question. You're getting what you were paying for. So there are people that will sell you a half an ounce for like $25, and they call it shake. They're like, we're straight up with you. It's shake, it's shiver, it's
People
leftover, it's fall over.
Dispensaries in Florida.
Yes. So there is an opportunity for you to go get a half an ounce of shake because they're honest about it, and it's actually really good. I'm not gonna lie. Like they're not pretending it's anything else. It's the very bottom of what's left over, and they are capitalizing on every red cent they can make.
But it still has to be tested, right?
Yeah.
So the THC level is tested and advertised.
It all depends where you're going, though, what lab you're testing with, because there have been shake like ground flour situations. Think of it like this: if you have top shelf bud, you're going to make a killing as top shelf bud. Why would you grind it up and sell it for 20 or $25 for 7 grams? You can make $70 or sometime around that if you sell it at tier, whatever the hell you come up with, and call it something interesting. And that's what they can do. Why would you sell an eighth for $70?
Right. It
or
doesn't make
give
sense.
away 7 grams for $20?
So what is that pre-ground?
That's not premium ground flour.
Why are they grinding that? Where is it coming from?
I mean, I could speculate because I don't know exactly, and I shouldn't know, but I do know. There are some people that maybe something happens to the flour and it doesn't pass as whole flour, so they have to turn it into something else. And so they do, and they, maybe
But if it doesn't pass as whole flour, what can you do in the grinding process that all of a sudden make it heavy?
Well, there's no seed to sale tracking software. There's no seed to sale tracking. So you could fail a flour sample for mold or whatever, pesticides or heavy metals. Okay. And then if you wanted to retest it and pay more money, you have to do it twice. So that's even more money to try and get it to pass. But if you're not going to be able to pass it, then you're supposed to destroy it, right? But who's going to watch you destroy it? The state is already stretched really thin, and there's no seed to sale tracking software. So it's like, you just have to tell them you destroyed it. But people will siphon some bad, nasty into some good quality. And that's why the potency is higher.
And also, since, you're not allowed to just go and test whatever you want, you're basically being given what to test. It could be it could, you might be actually testing as a lab, nothing to do with actual ground batch. It could be a totally different batch or some ground really good.
We take a representative sample. We take it compliantly.
How do you get the representative sample?
We should be presented with the entire batch of final products in final product packaging, post-processing, post-packaging, pre-patient, quarantined, everything, all the P's. So it should be ready to go to the store, and we go like a grocery store and we pull a representative sample based off the entire batch. So if the entire batch is like 5,000 units, we have to take 0.35% of that batch. We do the math. We know we're gonna have to take like blank amount of units, and we have a very proprietary, unique, random generating software that tells us where to pull from out of what's presented. But we're not counting every product in every box. They could, my eyes can't tell the difference between 4,000 units and 3,000 units being presented to me because I don't have time to count it all. We're
also
using the trust system that we've been presented.
Does every lab have this, proprietary software, or
they're supposed to, but nobody's checking them.
Might the cache of why you would test with one lab as they're like, okay, we have to randomly pick, and the person goes,
sometimes
did you randomly pick these 20?
Yes, exactly. Sometimes clients don't want you to pick, but you have to because the regulations say you have to. So if maybe some people let you hand them what you need to be.
I mean, I would suspect that happens all the time.
That does happen all the time.
It shouldn't happen, but
anything you can think of in your mind, anything nefarious and devious and scary to get by, or maybe kind of manipulate the system, it's happening or has happened in the state of Florida. It's unfortunate. The only reason that we've been able to get away with so much is because there's no enforcement, and also there's no eyes on anything. There's no seed to sale software. You're going off the honor system, and you can't enforce rules that you don't see, or violations that you don't see happening. Just like I've always told you, if you run a stop sign, did you break the law? If there's no cop, yes, you broke the law. It just means nobody enforced the law on you. But when there's a cop sitting there and you run the stop sign, you'll get enforcement. This is something where the state of Florida just does not have right now the capability to enforce violations that they cannot see, and they can't catch them and be everywhere.
It's never going to be really fixed unless the labs are not being employed by the dispensaries, but they're
it's not at the lab level. The lab level, the
labs need to be able to not be they need to have an indirect relationship with the dispensaries rather than a direct one. And they need to be able to test whatever they should be able to go to a store and pick out whatever products.
It's not the problem with the labs. The labs will, if you think about it, the labs that have the not so great ones are trying to get a piece of the market share, so they're doing whatever it takes to do that. I don't believe that they came into this market thinking they are going to do a bunch of bad stuff. They're doing what they have to because there's 22 licenses, 17 active growers, and there's 11 labs in the state. It's a saturated market, but that's not the OMMU's fault. The issue is with the software, the tracking software, the safeguards in place that should have been there from day one, and we've gone 5 years without them. Every other market out there has a seed to sale tracking software that's supposed to keep people honest. In an attempt to keep people honest, it is that one piece of software that you can have checks and balances. Right now, we have checks and trust.
That would help a lot, but you also, if the labs are being employed directly by the growers, they're always going to be incented.
That's a national problem. So a Florida specific would be.
No, it's not Florida specific. It's a national problem.
Seed to sale is Florida specific. If we fix that, that would be a big milestone. Nationally, yes. I think I've got a way that we could do testing safe, accurate, with integrity every time, and not have to compete with other labs. I don't want to say it right now because I'm going to try and present it, because it is a fail-safe way to ensure that no more manipulation of data, inflation of potency, no more shady laboratory practices, people being punished out the butt for doing all types of things and still holding licenses. It is a perfect way to do testing
If only
fairly.
someone will listen to you.
I just need the right people to hear it. And
And
it
care.
does have to do with kind of leaning away from the capitalistic mindset. Because I mean, that's where we all are. We're all kind of in this industry to make money, right? We came here for different reasons, but we're in cannabis to make that cannabis money. Like, otherwise we'd be in a, peaches or whatever, make that peaches money. But no, we're in cannabis because we worked hard to get here, and we all came for different reasons, family, whatever motives. But we came here for those reasons to make that cheddar. Like, come on.
Prodigious AF, people.
I'm just saying, like, that's why we're here.
Cynthia Brewer.
We have to get away from the mindset that we have the opportunity to have all of the everything.
Oh, do you hear that music playing? Like,
And we
when
have,
the Oscars
I
are
hope they
closing?
can add this, but I'm just saying the only way to make everything safe is to get away from I want all the business for myself.
And I would like
give
to
it to
also
me.
just thank you, Mom. And
the
I'm out of there.
academy. And I want to thank God,
Yeah, the
um,
music is playing. Let's say goodbye.
I'm just saying, that's all I have to say. Okay. Cynthia Brewer signing off for the Marijuana Mind. Thank you everyone for listening. We will talk to you next week.
Yes, we will be back next week. Jay Davis, JNasty,
Bye.
signing out. Keep it a lean, keep it a green as always.
And just don't forget that, like,
oh, now it's pointing to me.
Yes, it's always been pointing to you.
I'm expensive.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm worth it.
You can pay in Bitcoin.
I'm worth it. I accept Bitcoin.
Oh my God. Bye.
Bye.